Hey guys and gals, this is Bloggy of the Broken Legion of Gamers, and in this video, I'm going to go over the things that I think are essential to have for when you're airbrushing and things that are optional that I think you really should pick up. Well, for starters, you're going to need an airbrush. This is the model G233 that I unboxed for the channel about a month and a half ago, and soon it's going to be time to break this bad boy in, so I figured let's go through everything you need. Well, right here, you've got the airbrush. You can't airbrush without an airbrush. And then you're going to also need a compressor. Now, this is pretty much mandatory, but I wouldn't use this other method for an airbrush like this. For a cheaper airbrush, you can go to a craft store and might possibly be able to pick up cans of propellant. If you pick up cans of propellant, obviously you're not going to need a compressor, but for the way I'm using it and the airbrushes I'm using, a compressor is mandatory. There's different types of compressors. This is the piston type. There's also a little portable compressors that are about yay big that you screw the line in, plug into the wall, and you use as a portable means. Some of the cheaper airbrush kits, that's what they come with. And then you have these. This is your typical 1/5 horsepower oilless piston type compressor. On it, it's got a water trap, which I recommend for any compressor to have a water trap. It also has a gauge right here, and this piece right here that you turn to adjust the regulator, which is part of the water trap. The next thing you need is a means to get the air from the compressor to the airbrush. Your typical airbrush line. I took this 6-foot line, and I put quick disconnects on both sides so I could connect that in, and then later, connect this to the airbrush. Wait. On to the next thing. You don't need this, but I strongly recommend it. Quick disconnects. It makes setting up and tearing down your airbrush setup a lot faster, a lot easier. And if you're running multiple airbrushes, it makes changing the airbrushes really simple. So, quick disconnects. I apparently have 3 quick disconnects. Okay. 2 on the lines, this one right here. This one came in the G233 box, so that's how I have this one. And you're also going to want this. This is plumber's Teflon tape. This is very, very useful for when basically make sure all your connections are airtight, because you don't want anything leaking. You want consistent pressure to your airbrush gun. And another thing I recommend, if you're getting a compressor, if you're getting it separately and not in a kit and you have an option, get a compressor with an air tank. It lowers the runtime of the compressor, and it also makes the air that the compressor is sending to the gun more consistent. It doesn't pulsate. It's a hell of a lot better. If I could do everything over, I'd pick up a compressor with a tank. That I'm going to eventually pick up a compressor with a tank and then semi-retire this compressor. Have this as a nice little backup for when the one with the tank goes bye-bye. Now, back to the plumber's tape is really easy to use. Okay, this, you take the plumber's tape, get yourself, I'm only doing it like this because I'm on camera. Normally I'll leave it attached. You take your plumber's tape, And now you wrap it around the threads on the airbrush to make sure that you have an airtight connection between your quick disconnect coupler and the airbrush itself. Now, after you put your plumber's tape on, you take this coupler and you screw it on hand tight. This is going to make this right here pretty much airtight. So now you got plumber's tape, and this stuff, this was 89 cents for this roll, as you can see. So under $1, and I've used this on, this stuff goes a long way. One roll of it. Okay, let's get this stuff out of the way. You've seen this stuff. Now the next thing I'm going to recommend is, if you are, I'm sure most people are going to be airbrushing inside. So I'm sure most people are going to be airbrushing inside. So I recommend you pick up, I'm not going to open this up. Oops. Right here is an airbrush spray booth. This makes it so you spray in towards this. There's a fan built into here. It sucks all the excess paint out into the atmosphere. The hose goes onto the back of this. The hose goes into a window. It goes out the window and it keeps everything out. If you don't have a big, well-ventilated garage that you're spraying in, or big, well-ventilated basement that you're spraying in, this is definitely needed. You can pick one of these up for $100, and that means you can prime and base coat with your airbrush year-round in your room, in your apartment, in your kitchen if you have access to a window in your kitchen. I strongly recommend picking one of these up. Maybe they're $120 now. I've had this one for quite some time and it still hasn't gone bad. You can replace the filters in these things. It's basically just a really big box fan with that you spray paint into. That's basically what this is. Now the next thing you're obviously going to need, if you're using, the main reason to pick up an airbrush, so you never have to use rattle cans, never have to prime with rattle cans again. So basically what you need is primers. Right here, this is Vallejo, as you can see, Vallejo surface primers. I have white and black. This is why I recommend the Vallejo surface primer. I'm able to spray this through my airbrush without having to be thinned down. You don't want to have to thin down primers too much, because then you start thinning down the actual priming agent and what makes the primer work. So the fact that these, and I'm going to actually, with this airbrush, I'm going to put in the 0.5 millimeter tip, and I'm going to make this my priming brush. So I'm going to have a 0.5 millimeter tip. A lot of primer is going to go through, and it's going to make it easier to spray the primer without thinning it down. Now you got primers. Now you also need paints. Here's a set of airbrush paints I picked up from TCP Global. It's from a brand called US Art Supply. It's their acrylic, their 12 color basic airbrush paint set, opaque. We're gonna go do a product spotlight on this, and with that I also picked up this translucent red. But you can get airbrush paints from a lot of companies. Vallejo makes a range of airbrush paints. Citadel makes the Citadel Air. And what I strongly recommend is you pick up the thinner to match the brand of paints that you have. Or you can always get, this is Tester's Universal Enamel Thinner. This will work. I don't know how good it is for your airbrushes, so I'm not going to strongly recommend it. But Citadel Air makes their air cast thinner. It works with their brands. When I do the product spotlight and unboxing of this set, you'll see that this set comes with a thinner and an airbrush cleaner. That's good too. Have an airbrush cleaner that is designed to work with the paints that you have. You can always get an airbrush cleaner like this. This is from Createx. It's their airbrush colors line, and it's just an airbrush cleaner. You could get that, but I would strongly recommend. And this is one I'm gonna have to use with Citadel Air, because Citadel does not make an airbrush cleaner to be formulated with their paints. You can always mix your paints in the cup of the airbrush. I don't recommend it. What I recommend is you can either, from an art supply store, you can get paint mixing cups, or from a dollar store, you can always get disposable shot glasses, which will be about the same size as this. This is a 1 ounce paint mixing cup. You mix your paints in there, thin your paints out in here, and then pour it into your airbrush, and you're good to go. You can also, and for these types of pots, you're going to need to get eyedroppers. This is a reusable glass eyedropper that I've had for a while. You can pick, as you can see, you can pick these up for like a couple bucks, or you can pick up Master Airbrush from the Airbrush Depot, which is TCP's airbrush store. You can get these. This is 100 eyedroppers. Why not? Always have these for moving paints around, measuring out paints, and mixing paints. This is an important thing to have. It's an airbrush cleaning pot. What you do is you put a little bit of liquid in here. I'm going to be using 91% rubbing alcohol. You put that in there. Close this. And then when you're done with the color, you stick the tip of your airbrush in there. And then you go like this until the cup is clean. It basically, you put it in, you can put it inside your spray booth. Go like this, and there's filters in here, and it'll filter out it'll basically send clean air out through here. I strongly recommend one of these airbrush cleaning cup pots. And then another thing I recommend, if you have, now what's good about this pot, you can leave your airbrush here when you're done using it, and it'll hold the airbrush. But if you have more than one, you have to get one of these. It's an airbrush tree. This one holds 4 airbrushes. You see I have this pretty much filled up. On it I have two gravity fed, which can go nicely up on the top arms. And then these bottom arms are really good. No, these are siphon feed. The bottom arms are really good for the gravity feed airbrushes. If you have these siphon feeds, what you should pick up is extra pots like this, extra feed pots. And you should also always have, if you're going to use a thinner like this, always have a couple of these pots that just have a solid lid. You can fill this straight up with thinner. You can mark this with a silver Sharpie thinner, and then you can take the thinner straight from here into your mixing cup. And something you're definitely going to need. Get the tools to clean your airbrush. The tools I basically have, well, these wrenches came with the airbrushes, so. Then you get these reusable pipe cleaners right here. It's obvious I definitely need to get more of these little guys, but these big ones are good. And then also, you can get a kit, an airbrush cleaning kit that comes with all this stuff. And then you have these little pokers for cleaning out the nozzle. And the shot glass is good. You fill it up with rubbing alcohol up to here. You throw your nozzle in here, and it's good to go. This is everything I feel you need to clean. This is everything I feel you need when you're airbrushing. A lot of this stuff is optional. You don't need this tree. It's good to have. You do need this cleaning pot if you're gonna. It's good for cleaning in between colors and between the primers and base colors. It's especially needed if you're only using one airbrush, but it is definitely needed if you are going to be painting with. It's definitely needed if you're painting with only just one brush, but it's optional, but I think it's needed no matter how many brushes you have. Whether you have 4, 2, or 12, or however many, always have one of those. They're good to have. Always have the cleaning supplies. You're going to need paints. You're going to need paints and primers. That goes without saying. Sorry, my phone just fell off the mount. And you're going to need paints. You're going to need primers. Basically, this is all the stuff you're going to need. You can get everything that you're going to need for $150 and be on your way. And that includes paints and primers. This right here, when I go over this set right here was $34 for 12 paints, a thinner, and a cleaner. $34, and it gets you up and running with the paints that you need. These primers, you can find them for as low as $5 on eBay. You can find these for as low as $5. Get rid of the rattle cans. Even if you just use these for priming, it's amazing to have just as a tool for priming. Get rid of the rattle cans. Rattle cans, eventually you will get a bad can and destroy models. This, you see what you're putting through the gun. You're not going to have the same problems you have with rattle cans with an airbrush. Airbrushes are just that much better. They are great tools for your disposal. And this is the stuff you need. But that's it for this video. As always, support local wargaming. Have a nice day, guys.